My name is Genevieve Waterman. I am the Director of Corporate Partnerships and Engagement at the National Council on Aging. I'm really excited for today's panel. I think you'll find it really interesting. So I have on the screen my panelists, Andree Taylor and Laura Grogan-O'Mara. They're both from Bank of America. They're really excited to be here today. What I'll do first is I'll give introductions, and then we'll go straight into the conversation. We only have about 30 minutes, so hopefully we can fill the time with a really robust conversation around some of the challenges that older adults are facing in a post-COVID world. So with that, let me introduce our panelists formally. So first, we have Andree Taylor. He serves as the Financial Wellness Program Manager for the Bank of America Charitable Foundation. In this role, he partners with nonprofit organizations such as NCOA to help advance economic mobility for low and moderate income communities through strategic grants and financial education. He also leads the Foundation's Driving Impact webinar series. It's fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to get involved, I encourage you to do that, which is focused on leadership development and organizational capacity building for nonprofit leaders. Andree is also a community volunteer and has received several awards for his work in teaching financial literacy, including Daily Point of Light Award from Points of Light, and an organization that honors individuals who have helped change the world, and a Global Volunteer Award from Bank of America's most prestigious award for employee volunteers. He also sits on the board of directors for Junior Achievement of the Central Carolinas and National Jumpstart Coalition. Finally, Andree holds an undergraduate degree in accounting from East Carolina University and an MBA from North Carolina Central University, apologies. He is a proud father, certified life coach, and a recent author of a book entitled You Were Born to Heal. He lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and enjoys traveling, anything adventurous, reading, and listening to anything that inspires, exercising, and spending time with family and friends. Very impressive background, Andree. And Laura Grogan-O'Mara is our second panelist, and she is the Director of Retirement Policy Planning and Strategy on the Retirement Research and Insights at Bank of America. Laura is responsible for developing retirement savings policy initiatives, as well as managing legislative and regulatory proposals as they impact employer plans in large corporate and small market, as well as retail products such as individual retirement accounts, Roth IRAs, health savings accounts, SEP, Simple, and 403B plans. She is a frequent speaker on the latest retirement savings policy issues and has consulted on employer retirement plan issues and IRAs, and has more than 25 experience in retirement and the financial services industry. Laura represents Bank of America at the SIFMA Retirement and Savings Committee, the SPARC Government Relations Committee, the DC2A Policy Committee, and is the co-chair of the EBRI Public Policy Advisory Council. And she's also the past chair of the SIFMA Retirement and Savings Committee. Laura also holds a bachelor's in music and English from Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. So equally as impressive. Thank you both for being here. So just to start off the conversation, this panel, the concept of the panel is really around identifying some of the challenges that older adults and caregivers and younger populations are facing in a post-pandemic world. So just to start off, for those that may not be familiar with some of the challenges that we're facing, I want to cite some of our recent work that NCOA has published more recently. It's called a report around economic security, and it's really focused around the 80%. So looking at the 80% of households, or 47 million, they do not have financial resources to cover long-term care services or withhold a financial shock. And 20% of those households, or 11 million of those individuals, have no assets to draw upon when it comes to withstanding a financial shock. So we're seeing that older adults are entering into retirement impoverished or on the verge if they have an adverse event. I also want to turn, though, to younger populations, thinking about our caregivers. And so that's where I'll turn it over to Laura to talk a little bit more about what she's seeing, especially when working with employers, what she's seeing as challenges in a post-pandemic world.
Thanks, Genevieve, and thanks everybody for having us. I hope you can hear me okay there in the room. The conference sounds fantastic. We were just saying, Andree and I, we wish we were there in person, but Zoom will have to do. So all the points that Genevieve raised are very important, right? And one of the things that we do, I work within the retirement business at Bank of America. And so we are looking at all of the things that impact people's potential for safe and secure retirement. And that has just expanded exponentially over the years. And one of the most important pieces that we're looking at and doing multiple layers of research on is related to caregiving. Genevieve mentioned long-term care insurance. Even people who have long-term care insurance, there are challenges with getting that to cover care. And then the other problem is you can have all the insurance in the world and all the money to pay for care. If there aren't sufficient numbers of people to provide care, which we're already at a deficit, right? And we have a population that is aging at a rate of people turning 65, 4 million people turning 65 a year over the next several years, right? And there are not nearly as many people coming into the workforce in the healthcare space total, but particularly in personal care. And so many more people you talk to today, if you survey them, say they would like to age in homes, right? And those who might like to go into some sort of an assisted community, they may not be able to afford it. So they may have no option but to age at home. And who's going to provide that care in home? And so some of the things we've been looking at from a research standpoint are, who are those caregivers? What is the impact on those caregivers in the workspace, right? So in this research we've done, about 50% of employees identify as caregivers. And we one of the things we're really focused on is education here, right? Educating employers and individuals what it means to be a caregiver. So if all you're doing is going over to mom and dad, once a week or a couple of times a month to help them go through their finances or to run them for groceries or to sit in a doctor's appointment with them to help out, that's caregiving. And many people don't see themselves as a caregiver until it gets to the point where they're giving physical assistance to somebody from a care perspective, right? So one, it's important for people to understand when they are a caregiver. It's important from an employer standpoint. So when Genevieve introduced me, my focus is on employer benefits, right? And retirement savings. So why am I looking at caregiving? Because employers need to know how it's impacting their employees, because it impacts employee productivity, right? So one of the things that the research we're doing and we're informing employers about is to say, help this influence and inform the benefits that you provide your employees, right? And if you're a big employer like Bank of America, you can offer nice programs like we have, that I myself took advantage of when I was caring for my aging parents, where we have backup care, where we have teams that will, like concierge teams that will do an analysis. What kind of care do you need? And then they'll call 15 different places in the area and give you a report back to say, here are some of the agencies that you can call that offer the care that you're looking for. Here's the rate. That's a lovely program. But many employers, many people are employed by small to mid-sized employers. They don't have the resources to offer programs like that. So some of the things we're trying to do is help those employers understand, what can they do? So some of the things they can do may be as simple as, if you have a time off program for employees, stop calling it vacation days, personal days, sick days. Just call it a time off policy and give people the ability as adults to make the decision they need about what they need to use those days for. Because, the other term you hear a lot when you're working in the caregiving space is the sandwich generation, right? So you have people who are caring for children. There's children still, maybe they're little, maybe they're in college. And then you have those same people are caring for aging parents or perhaps a partner who's ill and needs care, right? So give those people the ability to make their own adult decisions about how they need to use that time off. That doesn't cost you anything if you already have a paid time off policy, right? And some of the other things are leverage organizations like I'm sure some of the folks who were at this conference here today, right? People that are working in communities that will help people understand what community resources are available to them. So if you don't have a lot of savings in retirement, you need to try to find ways, and we're trying to help inform people to find ways of how to make your retirement dollars stretch more. Are there community services that you can leverage that are low cost or no cost to you? So you're not putting your, few dollars that you have out on that, and you're managing your care. There are so many agencies and so much good work that's being done out there. It's a matter of helping people connect the dots. And I'll tell you, as a person who was a caregiver for my two aging parents, the first place I went was to my county website. And I work in retirement and benefits, and I just thought, this is not helpful at all. It might have been for statisticians and for economists who might be researching the issue, but it was not an easy click and find resources in the area. It took a lot of work to find that. So some of the stuff that we're doing is highlighting these needs, right? And trying to highlight and bring through the research that we're doing information to employers and to employees. So when you talk about financial wellness, right, and that's really the key, and that starts at when you start working, right? But maybe people haven't thought about it or haven't had the ability to, or the bandwidth, just because they're just working to, make enough money to pay the bills and to put food on the table. But you can start becoming more financially well at any point in time, right? And a lot of the programs and the work that Andree does in the community, and his organization helps, he's part of the organization helps do in communities, goes a long way to that, right? And education and information are powerful for people. So understanding where there are ways that you can leverage local benefits, where there are ways that you can talk to your employer. Maybe you don't even know that your employer has some sort of a benefit. Helping people to feel comfortable to identify as a caregiver. I try to frame it this way, that when my kids are 27 and 28, but when they were little babies and I was working and trying to figure out how to be a working parent, the business community was just really starting to get their hands around childcare, right? And childcare benefits. And that's 29 years ago. And I think they started doing a pretty good job of that. And then when you talk about impacts of the pandemic, look at what happened during the pandemic and how much more important and how much more focused people understood the need for childcare was. And there were a lot of subsidies in that space. And now post-pandemic, a lot of those subsidies are gone. And we're seeing a real stretch and burden on the childcare industry, right? And that's really unfortunate, because I feel like we're just starting to launch people paying attention to the adult caregiving aspect of benefits and education and information. And now we've got stressors on both sides. Some of the other things that we're looking at is, who are the caregivers, right? They tend to be adult children or your partner. Well, what about people who are aging single or divorced? What about people who chose not to have children? Who's going to step in and provide that care? Because more often than not, that care is provided by family members. And even, as I said before, if you have the wherewithal to pay somebody else to come provide that care, can you find those caregivers? There are places in the country, and I'm maybe preaching to the choir here already, that where there's already like a 2-year backlog on people who are eligible, just say for Medicare-based in-home care, and it's 2-year backlog on just getting a person to come provide that care. And that's in like places like rural Maine or, rural parts of the Midwest, understandably. But I live in the greater Philadelphia area, and the couple of times I needed to leverage backup care, there were times when they could not provide somebody for me. So that tells you, and here we are, we're at the early phases of this, burgeoning aging population. There's already a strain on the system. So we have to get smarter about how we manage care. I think there are going to be interesting paradigms coming forward. We partner with the Global Coalition on Aging and with the Milken Institute and the Alzheimer's Association, right? That's a whole other factor, Alzheimer's, dementia. Everybody will have cognitive decline, but those are more, obvious, impactful, right? And sometimes significantly so on cost and care and how the family stressors are. So anyway, we're partnering with those different organizations to help glean information and to work on research projects. And one of the things that Global Coalition on Aging is looking very carefully at right now is Japan, because they are kind of the tip of this silver tsunami of aging, of having a growing aging population. They have built a couple of little communities that are just for people with Alzheimer's, where they can freely move about. It's like an enclosed community, right? So it's just one little example, but there are lots of things they're doing, leveraging robotics and technology. How can we have those things and artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence? How can we have those things help people age in place with fewer human resources available potentially, or with less expensive resources available if we can build to scale. So that's kind of overarching. I don't want to take up the whole time. I want to let Andree get a word in here edgewise,
Yeah,
and see if Genevieve has any thoughts on what I've shared so far.
yeah, yeah. Thanks, Laura. And you're the expert here, so I appreciate everything that you've shared. Good morning, everyone, and thanks again, Genevieve, for having us. I just wanted to add to something you said, Laura, regarding the caregiving. Just the whole mental, physical, financial strain that caregiving can bring. I was reading an article recently, and it said that the median age of caregiving adults is roughly 51, and about 61% of those caring adults are female, right? So if you think about some of the maybe less financially or resource driven benefits you can provide, something simple just as an employer of valuing and showing your employees how you value caregiving by verbalizing it, like Laura said, by announcing the programs, by showing your support with employees around the time and the flexible work locations, right? That's another way you can actually do something simple, fairly simple for your employees when it comes to their caregiving. So I just wanted to add
Andree,
that to it.
that's a great point too, right? Just letting employees know that you understand caregiving is something that might be a stressor in their life, that goes tremendous way, because for somebody to feel comfortable saying, can I come in an hour late, or can I change my shift with somebody else because I've got to be with my mom at the doctor, or I've got to take my dad to, get his hearing aids fitted or something like this. That gives people it reduces a lot of stress to feel like I can't say I'm this person in the workplace, right? And the thing is, every time I talk at an event like this and we talk about the research we've been doing around caregiving or policy work that's going on around caregiving, I have people, that's why I feel badly I'm not there, right? I have people come up to me afterwards and they're like, that's me. I've been helping my mom. I've been helping my dad. We just went through, 3 years of helping my parents and they've since passed. Or, how do you manage this? How do you facilitate this? I have friends at work where it's a regular connection. How's your mom doing? How's it used to be, how the kids? What are the kids doing? And our kids are, getting out and launching on their own, but now it's parents. But I will also say, you're right on those stats, Andree, right? Age 51 and the oldest daughter. That's me. Thank you very much. Right. And that was the role I fell into. And thankfully, I'm one of 5 siblings and everybody was very helpful. We teamed together. But that is like a rarity going forward as far as family size is concerned. And the other thing that we're starting to see as we're doing this research is the caregiving age is coming down and down and down. We're seeing kids, right? I can say this because I'm just about to turn 60, but we're seeing kids in their late teens and early 20s becoming caregivers. Some of the other things, we just had a brainstorming session the other day on the team to talk about what kind of research do we want to engage for in 2025, right? We're already planning for the next year and who we're going to partner with. And my first takeaway was, what a great job I have that like we can sit around and say, what are the things we can do to help people? Like where's the information that's needed? I'm so fortunate to have the job that I do. But things that we're talking about are, what about younger caregivers? What about, Gen X and Gen Z, and how is this impacting them? What about military families? Because you might have a younger person, not just a person aging and needing care, but a younger person who's come back from military service, and it has a whole different color as to what that caregiving is. It could be PTSD related. It could be, not to be grim, but loss of a limb. Like that's a whole different kind of caregiving than, mom is starting to need a cane or a walker or a wheelchair or ramps in the house, right? Those are different issues that people are dealing with. We need to look at those issues too, and help employees holistically and help employers understand what these issues are and what the concerns are, and lead people to resources, right? There are resources for veterans. So let's help people connect the dots. What are those? Some are, veterans benefits through the federal government. Some are nonprofits that are doing work in that space. So again, connecting dots, helping people to understand what the issue is and that it exists. Educating individuals. You are a caregiver. Be able to raise your hand and say, I am a caregiver. And your level of care assistance may only ever be minimal. Mom and dad might just need a little bit of help, and they might be really fortunate, live into their 90s, mobile and with their mental capabilities about them. Or you could go with a situation a friend of mine did a couple of years ago in her, early 50s. Her mom went from thinking she had a back problem to a cancer diagnosis to within 4 months, she was gone, and she had to take a leave of absence from work to be able to provide the care that her mom needed, and because she wanted to be there with her mom, knowing that her time was limited. So these are things that people are juggling. And if it comes down to nothing else from an employer standpoint, whether employee productivity is important to you, then you need to pay attention to the levers of what help people feel comfortable and productive in the workplace. And that goes back to financial wellness again, that Andree focuses on. The more people feel a little bit in control of their financial situation, the stress level comes way down and they can focus on the other things that are important in their life. And then you just add on all of these other stressors, right? So childcare, adult care, housing, retirement savings, all of these things, right? The more that we can provide to educate and help people understand the situation and connect them to resources that are available, that's the way I see our job and our work. And that makes things easier for employers who are our main clients in the retirement benefits space, and their employee participants in their, benefits programs who are the, kind of sub-client in our space. So that's the connection that we make. And it thrills me that, yes, it's useful to the clients that we have and to gain and to bring in new clients, but it's so important to me. And I love the fact that it has this much broader reach, and all this information is accessible to anybody. We have, public facing website with information with all of these various different reports. We have one on social determinants on health across the generations. That's another fantastic angle to look at things. And I'll share back with you, Genevieve, if you want to share with people in the conference some of these papers that people can access. So information, education, communication, all the shuns are really important here, right? In helping the people understand what these stressors are and where the resources are and how to better manage their own interaction, whether it's with a family member or it's an employer to employee that we're dealing with.
Thank you, Laura. This is all really great information. We only have a few minutes left, so I just want to turn a little bit more to the partnership that NCOA has with Bank of America and just kind of talk a little bit more. We touched a little bit on financial wellness, and part of the partnership, and Andree, feel free to jump in, is really focused around, right now, is focused around financial literacy, but the overall partnership with NCOA for 12 years now has really been focused around the economic security of older adults, and we're really grateful for Bank of America's support in this area. But I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we've been doing as partners. And I'll share, we just wrapped up our first year of a pilot that's focused on budgeting and really helping with the basics of money management with older adults. And we only had 3 sites, and they were only expected to work with 100. And they actually outperformed. They had over 3,000 people that were really interested. So it really shows that there really is a need for financial literacy. And I'll turn it over to Andree, kind of talk a little bit more. I think one of our conversations has been around there's just a growing need for financial literacy throughout your life. And so, Andree, with all of your experience in this area, I'd love to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Genevieve. So we value our longstanding partner with NCOA. Providing not only financial resources, but human capital to make financial lives better for older adults, especially those living in low and moderate income communities. What I'm most proud of and really kind of sink my teeth into is our co-developed resources that leverage both our Better Money Habit volunteers within the bank, also our at-risk person employee teams to help educate seniors on everything from budgeting to how to avoid scams and fraud. So that whole Savvy Saving Seniors module that we co-developed together is really beneficial for not only folks in retirement, but for caregivers, for folks thinking about retirement as well. The key is awareness, right? The key is how do you start to prepare for maybe the unexpected, right? Understanding where you are today financially from a budget perspective, understanding that people are living longer, right? I was reading something, the Society of Actuaries said a man living in his mid-50s today has a 1 in 3 chance of reaching age 90. And that's 1 in 2 women, so 50% chance for women to get to that age of 90 as well, right? So how are you generating enough income to meet your day-to-day expenses as you are living longer? What are those expenses? Obviously, we know inflation is real, right? So the cost of healthcare is going up. So how do you plan for those things? So understanding where you are today, understanding where you want to be tomorrow is really key. And that is the work we're doing with NCOA when it comes to the budgeting. I was super proud to last year, as part of one of those pilots in the Watts area, we had our volunteers go out, and we had a phenomenal session where seniors were asking a ton of questions around budgeting. We also talked about the scams and how to avoid those scams. So there's really a need, there's really a desire to learn about the financial impacts of life just as a whole, right? And again, financial wellness is emotional wellness, is mental wellness, is all tied together. So the more you can plan for retirement, the more you can be more financially stable and able, the better off you'll be overall from a health perspective. And that's what we're here to do and here to focus on. So thanks again, Genevieve, for the partnership.
Thank you.
Andree, I just wanted to share something funny when you talked about longevity, because that's great. We talk about this longevity bonus. People are living longer, but that means maybe you have to work longer, right? And you maybe have to have more money saved to be able to cover your expenses when you can no longer work, whether you want to or not, right? And I was just recently at our client conference for our institutional 401k employers, and we had a whole session on aging and longevity. And one of our speakers said, probably somebody in this room that is going to live to 125. And from a couple of rows behind me, I heard somebody go, "Oh, please, God, no." And I thought, the longevity bonus is only a bonus if you're living healthy and able to support yourself in that time frame, right? And I don't think the age 125 is going to be massive for, many of us, but we could be getting to that point when you look at, advances in healthcare and medical wellness, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we've shifted, right? One of the things that we've seen over the past couple of years with legislative changes and policy changes, if you have savings in an IRA or an employer 401k or whatever, you used to be at age 70 and a half, you had to start at the minimum, start taking distributions by age 70 and a half. We have over the past 5 years seen that age go from 70 and a half to 72 to 73, with a change that's coming down the road a few years to 75. Why are policymakers increasing the age at which you must start taking distributions from retirement tax benefit savings? Because people are living longer and they're working longer. And if people are working into their mid-70s, especially low to moderate income individuals, if they have some money saved, why would we force them to take it out before they need it? If you can still work and manage your expenses into your 70s, and you on that income can live on that, then I'd rather have you defer taking anything out of retirement savings, even if it's small amounts of retirement savings you have, until you absolutely need it, right? So those are some of the kinds of things that we're trying to push for on the policy front as well, as far as legislation and regulation are concerned, and plan design and savings design and these sorts of things, so that we can help people who are living longer to be able to support themselves sufficiently in those retirement years.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really key too, Laura. You mentioned earlier around programs that are available for older adults, especially low to moderate income, right? Because not all of us have a retirement savings. Not all of us have access to investments. So those folks who don't, how do we make sure they're still taken care of as they are aging? So the benefits that are available in your community, and again, also working with local volunteers through partnerships like the one we have with NCOA to really hone the importance of starting early to budget and really understanding where you are. So again, right, the increase in expenses, all of that plays a really big factor as we're talking about the aging population.
All great thoughts there. This is such an impressive panel. We're almost at time. So if there are any questions, please come up to the microphones. There's 2 here. We have about 2 minutes left, roughly. But in the meantime, I just want to thank our speakers so much for this insightful conversation. I think one of my main takeaways is, how am I going to put aside money? So if there are robots that are going to be helping me as a solo ager, I need to know how to afford that. I don't know if you all are thinking that too. But let's take a lesson from Japan and think about how can we as solo agers really think about who's going to help us and how we can afford that. So I don't see any questions, so I think we'll wrap up with that. I'm so grateful for the partnership that we have, Andree and Laura, and thank you again for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.